What's up, my friends? Welcome back to another video. And today we are talking about something a little bit different. I wanted to cover 5 things that I think most composers do that I personally don't do. You might call me a rebel, you might call me old fashioned, whatever, but I think it's important to share each other's workflows and maybe pick and choose some techniques that work for you and ones that don't, maybe discard them. I just want to be super open with you and let you know what really works for me and what doesn't work for me. So I've chosen 5 of the most, I guess, pressing hot topic issues that I've seen pop up, and I want to cover those with you here in today's video. So before we really get started, I want to give you a free guide to just kick things off. This is what I consider the ideal composing workflow. It's a totally free guide. It's a 5-step process that I follow for every single piece of music that I write, from the initial idea all the way to the completed master. I think it's a super practical workflow that if you follow, you'll be able to feel more free and more confident in every single piece that you write and produce. So I want to give that to you. It's totally free. Just click the first link in the box below and you can keep it handy with you when you are working on your next piece of music, and hopefully it helps you with your workflow. So without further ado, let's dive into the 5 things that most composers do, or that I hear them doing or see them doing, that I personally don't do. The first one is more of a niche thing, and that is negative delay, or plugin delay, or track delay, or whatever they call it. And this is essentially when you're applying a plugin that compensates for the delay that some sample libraries deliver, in terms of when you press a key on the keyboard, there's like a split, maybe a couple milliseconds, or there's a bit of a delay between when you press the key and you actually hear the sample in your ear. So to compensate for this, there are plugins made that will actually compensate for that delay. So as soon as you press the key, you hear the sample and it comes out right away. And this is super useful for many people, and I can certainly see why people use it, because it can be a time saver, really, and you don't have to go in and edit the notes individually after you've performed in your lines. But I actually don't use this approach, probably just because I'm lazy, but I actually do enjoy playing my lines in live, using my MIDI controller, using the mod wheel, so on and so forth. But the process of actually going back and adjusting the notes, moving them earlier or later, or changing up the notes, whatever they may be, that process of editing and refining, to me, is really, really fun. And I really enjoy that, because it's like, in the world of virtual orchestration, you are not only the performers of the instruments, but you are also the conductor. And the conductor is responsible for keeping the whole ensemble together, keeping everything in time, making sure the expression is coming up correctly, and all of that. So as a virtual orchestrator, or someone working with me, you have to take on the role of that conductor as well. So you have to make sure all the parts are in time and everything is working together in a very seamless and smooth way and just sounding cohesive. So this editing process is part of the entire workflow, in my opinion. And when you use a delay plugin, that can certainly help make things maybe faster, but um, I don't know. I guess I just like the humanistic aspect of going through and just making sure everything is lined up as you really want it to. Maybe it's just the micromanaging aspect in me, but that's one of the things that I do believe putting in the time for is actually worth it. So that's the first thing, is like the kind of negative delay plugins. I just don't use those. I basically adjust by hand after I've laid in the live performance. The second thing that I don't really do that most composers do is templates. Whether that's an orchestral template or a mix template or whatever it is, I tend not to use too many templates for my own projects. And the main reason for this is because I don't really want to be influenced by the template choices when I'm starting a new project. I tend to like a blank canvas when I'm starting a new project. So for and again, it really depends on the context of what you're working with. Like if you're working on a film score that has a lot of similar cues in similar styles, then a template would certainly help. And I might even use templates for that situation. But I kind of write music for myself. I write music for personal enjoyment. And I typically tend to like writing in various styles. So I try not to write in too many styles that are similar. I don't want to write too many tracks that sound the same. So I'll typically start with a blank session every single time, and I'll load in a contact instance, and then I'll kind of decide like, ooh, what kind of instrument am I hearing for the melody? What am I hearing for the harmony to accompany that? I'll ask myself all of those questions and then bring in the appropriate instruments accordingly. So for me, that gives me a sense of satisfaction, because it's also me being creative at the same time while setting up my session. And this is, again, without a template. This is starting from complete scratch. So you might say, yeah, it takes more time, you're less efficient that way, but I guess there's a give and take. There's always a sacrifice there. So if you want to be faster and you want to just get to writing right away, then a template might influence your instrumental choices a little bit more. Whereas if you start blank every single time, then it might take a little bit more time to load in the samples, but you do get a bit more creativity because you get to choose exactly which instruments you want for your project. So that's the second thing I typically don't do, is starting with a template. The third thing I try not to do, and this is something that I have done in the past very much so, is hoarding sample libraries. Are you guilty of this? Yeah, you probably are. Um, that's not fair. I shouldn't accuse you, but um, I was definitely guilty of this. If you haven't heard, or if I kind of talked about this in previous videos, but the first year of orchestral composition, when I was collecting my virtual instruments, I think I spent upwards of between $20,000 and $30,000 on equipment and sample libraries alone. And it was when I was doing my tax statements, I was like, wow, I spent a reckless amount of money on those tools that I really didn't need to. So I had a little bit of buyer's remorse there, but I've learned over time that you really don't need so many sample libraries to accomplish the task you're actually going for. And as my channel has grown and as more developers have kind of approached me with with requests of like review copies in exchange for reviews, right? You know that I do reviews on my channel. I've learned to better say no and only accept the libraries that truly interest me and really, really excite me. And at the same time, that I think would be beneficial to you at the same time. Because if you're watching my channel, then it's very likely that there is some part of my messaging or maybe my workflow, my sample library choices that you relate with or you resonate with. So I only want to show with you or share with you the libraries and the equipment that I truly feel passionate about, and the ones that I would personally use, and therefore the ones that I think you should consider using as well if you want to write in a similar style as me, or if you want to use those libraries for similar applications, if that makes sense. So hoarding sample libraries is both a good and a bad thing, because you can have so much choice there and you have so much variety and you expand your color palette, but at the same time you're spending a lot of money on it if you don't really regard the price, and it can take up a lot of sample storage space as well. And then mentally, it could take up a lot of mental space, because then you have so many choices to choose from. Let's say you want to write a string piece and you have like 20 string libraries, then which one are you actually going to go with if you have so many choices? Whereas if you only had like three: Cinematic Studio strings, Soaring strings, Vista, whatever, then your choices become so much easier, right? So that's the third thing that I'm not doing currently that a lot of composers do. That is collecting basically every sample library that pops up on the market. I am proud of that more so now, and that's become part of my message and part of my delivery. I think in a lot of my content is that less is more, and you really don't need so much equipment to write beautiful music. So that's number three. Number four is more of a controversial one, I think. I don't write a piece of music every single week, or every single month for that matter. Again, I'm writing for myself, right? And a lot of people do write music for a living. So for them, it's more of a responsibility. Even if they don't want to do it, if it feels like a chore, they have to do it because it pays the bills, right? And it's part of their routine. They develop the consistency and the habit of doing it day in and day out. And I have nothing but respect for those people, because that's something I absolutely could not do. I would burn out. I would grow resentful of the job, and I think I would just lose passion for music altogether if I was in that situation where I had to write music for a living every single day or every single week, let alone every single month, right? So I really only write music myself when I feel inspired to do it. And I think there are pros and cons to both of those things. For me, I do it because I got into music originally because I really enjoyed it. I started as a songwriter with singing and lyrics, and then I moved into orchestral composition to really brush up my arranging chops. And over time, it's just been more and more fun to do. So that sense of fun and that sense of enjoyment is something I never want to lose when it comes to writing music. And the way for me to retain that feeling is by not having the pressure of needing to write and arrange music on a regular basis. I want to do it when I feel motivated to do it, when I'm in the right place, when an idea hits me. Those situations are when I really want to output creatively. And You might be wondering, well, then how, what are you doing to establish a sense of routine and maintain creativity and output on a regular basis? And the answer is this content that I'm putting out right now. This is my job, quote unquote job, if you will. I create content on a weekly basis, usually twice a week. And this not only adds value to the world and helps you for free, but it also builds my business in the back end as well, actually. So I can monetize my knowledge in the back end background through my online courses that I sell, my membership, my private membership, and it also helps draw potential clients and customers my way as well through like freelance work or interviews, podcasts, whatever they may be. It's having a social network or having a portfolio out there that is readily available to the world is a great way to put yourself out there, develop a routine, develop a sense of consistency and a sense of responsibility, because it becomes another part of your daily routine. So that's number 4. Is I don't write a piece of music every single week or every single month. I basically write when I feel like it. So that could be twice a year. That could be an entire album in a few months, right? It really just depends on when motivation hits me. And that might not be the best choice for you, again, if you're writing for a living or if you just want to continue to improve your skills on a very regular basis. Then maybe writing every single week or writing a track every single month might be a good option for you. It really just depends where you are in your composing journey and what you put the emphasis on for yourself. All right, the 5th and final thing that I don't do that most composers do, or at least want to do, I think, is write for media. So that could be film, that could be video games, that could be podcasts, short films, like whatever it may be. A lot of people are inspired by the idea of telling stories, and so am I, but just in a different way. So I think the idea of bringing a visual to life, whether that's a picture or a moving image like a film or animation, telling that story not only through the visuals but also hearing a soundtrack in the background, that appeals to a lot of composers, and for good reason, because I think human beings are very visual creatures. But then it's called audio visual for a reason. You not only look at the picture, but you also hear what's going on with it as well, the dialogue, the sound effects, the music, and everything. So it all works together. And I think people who are really influenced by movies growing up or listen to a lot of those kinds of soundtracks, they have a very natural inclination to that field because they want to reproduce that same feeling of amazement and wonder that they felt when they were younger and getting into music and maybe wanting to start composition. But for me, I think, yeah, I was just never the biggest movie guy. Like, I've watched movies and stuff, but I never really paid attention to the music. And I think, of course, that's a testament to the composers that they're not, their music is not overstepping on the picture. But I've really appreciated music the most when it was by itself, actually. So video game soundtracks, just downloading the soundtracks and listening, or listening to songs online, appreciating the lyrics, the arrangements, and everything. That's why I started out as a songwriter, actually. Actually, before that, I was a classical pianist. I started playing piano at 5 and did the classical RCM and all of that. But I never really, really enjoyed it. I really started to enjoy music when I started writing my own material, writing my own songs, telling stories through standalone pieces of music. And that passion, that enjoyment has still stuck with me to this day. Um, yeah, so I mean, I've had experiences writing for film and scoring for video games and stuff like that. But I just think in general, it really just depends on what you're going for and what your inspirations are, what you really, really want. Do you want do you want your music to be able to stand on its own, and do you want it to be unaccompanied, or do you want it to work with the picture and have a sense of cohesion altogether with the audiovisual experience for the listener? I think ultimately it just depends on what you really, really, really want. And as you continue to grow older and more experienced, that vision, I think, will just refine itself more and more. So yeah, those are the kind of the 5 things that I think most composers do look forward to or practice that I personally don't. Just to quickly recap here, the first thing is negative delay. I don't use those plugins. I prefer manually editing and massaging the MIDI data myself. Number 2 is using templates. So I don't use templates very much or very often because I like to start from scratch and come up with my own influences from scratch. Number 3 is hoarding sample libraries. So I collect sample libraries a lot less now than I used to. I really only collect the ones or accept review copies from developers that I really feel passionate about and I could really see myself using in the future. Number four is writing a piece of music every single week or every single month. I tend to write when I'm feeling motivated and inspired. And for me, that's the best way for me to keep my passion, even though that might be completely different for you. And that's totally fine. And fifth and finally is just writing for media. I've always preferred writing songs. I've always preferred writing standalone pieces of music. And I feel I've kind of battled with this a long time, but I've come to the conclusion more that I think I do prefer songwriting and just writing standalone pieces of music because it gives me the full control that I love. And I want to be 100% in control and happy with what I'm writing every step of the way. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. Let me know a comment below, maybe if one of these five things have been things that you've considered, or maybe are you doing all five of these things, or do you not do any of these things, or do you kind of use a couple of these and don't do a couple of these? Let me know which ones you kind of relate with, which ones you do, which ones you don't do. I'd love to hear your kind of thoughts on that, and yeah, share your experiences with the community. I'd love to know. And again, if you are curious about just maybe refining your composing workflow in general and really feeling confident and having just a clear sense of mind every time you go to write a piece of music, then I want to give you my free guide called The Ideal Composing Workflow. This will be perfect for you if you're just starting out, or if you're an intermediate advanced composer and you just want to refine your workflow. This is my 5-step process that I go through every single time I write a piece of music, from start to finish, from the initial idea to the completed master. This is the framework that I follow every single time for every single piece of music, and I think it'll be super valuable to you. It should just crystallize the workflow down to a science. So if you follow that, if you incorporate it, I think you will find it very, very useful for yourself. And it's totally free. So click the first link in the box below and it'll take you straight there, and you can grab it as my gift to you. Thank you so much for watching, my friend. I'll catch you in the next one. And again, let me know if you have any questions and share your thoughts with me in the comments below on your personal experiences. I'll catch you in the next one, and take care. Bye-bye.